1989. Pistons, the Bad Boys. Expiration date: they bullied the league, broke Jordan, and ruled with fear. The Bad Boys Pistons won back-to-back titles by making basketball a street fight. But time softens even the toughest. By 1991, their physical style was outdated and their stars worn down. Isaiah's wrist broke, Rodman fractured mentally, and the team turned on itself. When they walked off on Jordan without shaking hands, it wasn't defiance. It was denial. The end had come and they couldn't handle it. 2008 Celtics, the brotherhood that turned bitter. The Ubuntu Celtics were built on loyalty, defense, and redemption. Garnett, Pierce, Allen, three veterans who saved Boston from irrelevance. One championship in 2008, then injuries to KG, Rondo's rise, and internal pride split them apart. Ray Allen's move to Miami ended the brotherhood. They didn't collapse in public, they decayed in silence. What began as unity ended as resentment. The dynasty that promised togetherness couldn't survive ego. 2010's Clippers, the Lob City Mirage. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, high-flying, highlight-heavy, and emotionally hollow. Lob City looked unstoppable on paper, but cracks were everywhere. Constant locker room tension, playoff meltdowns, and coaching politics under Doc Rivers killed their momentum. The 3-1 collapse to Houston in 2015 became the symbol of wasted potential. Talent was never the problem. Leadership was. The Clippers weren't cursed. They were complacent. 1990s. Pacers. The eternal almost. Reggie Miller's Pacers lived for the fight. Tough, disciplined, and fearless, they pushed Jordan's Bulls, the Knicks, and the Shaq-Kobe Lakers to their limits. But limits were all they ever reached. They lacked a second star. Their primes ran long, and time outlasted them. 2000 was their shot, and they fell short. By the next decade, Miller was gone, and the window closed. They weren't losers, just victims of timing, forever. One shot away from history. 2000 Suns, 7 seconds to nowhere. Mike D'Antoni's Suns changed basketball forever. Nash, Stoudemire, and Marion turned pace into poetry. An offense built on movement and math, 7 seconds or less. But beauty doesn't always beat power. The Spurs smothered them. Suspensions and bad luck haunted their prime, and defense never caught up to innovation. By 2008, the system was dismantled. Nash aged out, and D'Antoni was gone. They revolutionized the game, just not their own legacy. 1990s Magic. Built too fast, broke even faster. Shaq and Penny were supposed to rule the 90s. Two young superstars, finals by year 3, and the future of the league at their feet. Then came ego, injury, and betrayal. Penny's knees failed. Shaq bolted for LA, and Orlando's dream turned into dust. A dynasty built overnight collapsed overnight. The Magic weren't beaten by rivals. They were undone by impatience. 1980s Bucks, the forgotten contender. For a decade, the Bucks were too good to rebuild and too flawed to win it all. Moncrief, Marquez Johnson, and later Terry Cummings kept them near the top, but never across the finish line. The Celtics and Sixers blocked every finals path. By the late 80s, stars declined, trades failed, and the city moved on. Milwaukee's consistency became its curse. Excellence without glory, effort without memory. 2010's Raptors. 1 year, one banner, one vanish. Kawhi Leonard arrived, conquered, and vanished. The perfect hit-and-run dynasty. Toronto's 2019 title was miraculous. Buzzer beaters, dethroning the Warriors and uniting an entire country. Then, Kawhi left, and the empire evaporated. No scandal, no betrayal, just absence. Within a year, the roster aged. The bubble broke their rhythm, and contenders replaced them. Their story wasn't tragedy, it was fleeting perfection. 1970s, Blazers, the Walton collapse. Bill Walton was basketball brilliance, passing, defense, leadership, everything. The 1977 Blazers were young, selfless, and dominant, storming to a championship that felt like the start of an era. Then, his body betrayed him. Foot injuries shattered his prime. The team fractured over trust issues. And by 1979, the dream was gone. One injury erased an empire. Portland learned how fragile greatness can be when it depends on one man. 2010 Celtics, Tatum Brown early years. Boston's rebuild looked flawless. Two young stars, elite picks, and a legendary franchise ready to rise again. But chemistry isn't built in spreadsheets. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown clashed in rhythm and identity. Kyrie Irving's tenure poisoned the locker room, and Brad Stevens' system stalled under ego. They had talent without trust, potential without patience. Playoff heartbreaks became tradition. The early years weren't failure. They were friction. Boston's dynasty in waiting almost burned out before it began. 1970s, Warriors, Barry's glory, team's implosion. Rick Barry led the 1975 Warriors to a stunning championship, one of the greatest upsets in NBA history. But behind the trophy was chaos. Barry's arrogance alienated teammates, ownership meddled, and egos collided. The roster disintegrated within 2 years. Golden State's brief reign ended in dysfunction and silence. Before strength in numbers, there was isolation and glory. A dynasty that ate itself alive. 2000's Mavericks. Dirk's long slog to nowhere until 2011. Dirk Nowitzki carried Dallas through a decade of brilliance and heartbreak. 67 wins in 2007 ended in humiliation against Golden State's We Believe team. Years of dominance collapsed each postseason. Soft label, bad luck, and wasted peaks. Redemption finally came in 2011, but it was fleeting. The team aged instantly, dismantled for cap space, and faded into mediocrity. One man conquered everything, only for the empire to vanish right after. 2019 to 2022 Nets, the super team that never existed. Brooklyn assembled a dream: Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden. 3 generational scorers, 0 cohesion, injuries, vaccine drama, trade demands, and ego destroyed the project before it began. They won nothing. Harden quit. Kyrie clashed with management, and KD asked out twice. The Nets' era lasted 3 years and 0 finals. They built a skyscraper on quicksand and watched it sink. 1990s. Blazers, from contenders to chaos. Portland was deep, disciplined, and dangerous. Drexler, Porter, Kersey, and Cliff Robinson led them to 2 finals in 3 years. But failure lingers. The 1992 loss to Jordan haunted them, and the locker room unraveled. Off-court problems, egos, and front office impatience eroded the core. By mid-decade, they were the Jailblazers, talented, troubled, and unrecognizable. A dynasty's decline turned into a reputation nightmare. 1980s Rockets. The Twin Towers, Topple Ralph Sampson, and Hakeem Olajuwon were supposed to redefine basketball: size, skill, and dominance in perfect balance. They reached the 1986 finals young, confident, and destined for more. Then came collapse. Sampson's body broke down, the locker room fractured, and drugs tore through the roster. Within 3 years, the Rockets went from the league's future to another cautionary tale. The Twin Towers didn't fall to competition, they fell to fragility. 1970s. Bullets, always the bridesmaid. The Washington Bullets spent a decade chasing greatness, but never holding it. They reached the finals 4 times, led by Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld, and finally won in 1978. But the magic was short-lived. The core aged instantly, the front office stagnated, and new contenders rose. They didn't collapse dramatically, they just stopped mattering. A dynasty in numbers, not in memory.